That's the whole purpose of creating language like this. But that's the thing, is that they can, again, it's all about naming, because your oppressor and your enemy has authority over you, where they can rename you. Just think about it. And this, I put this in this slide for a reason. They have, the European scientific community has created a definition for a well-endowed woman. Doesn't matter if it's Khoi, a black woman. This is, I'm going to define this. This is pronounced steatopija. It's defined as a high degree of fat accumulation in and around the buttocks, extending to the outside and front of the thighs, forming a thick layer reaching sometimes to the knee. This is what I mean by your enemy has studied you, and specifically your women, to a T. They've been studying us on a scientific level for hundreds of years. So they can actually define to you what your woman is. We've given you a name for a woman that's built like this. Because their women, the Europeans, are built like little boys. Yes. So when they come in contact with our women, it's like, wow. But their scientists, this is also part of white supremacy, they can give a scientific term for a well-endowed black woman, because they were doing the same thing with their vaginal areas. They were trying to, because if you look up a movie, it's called Venus Noir, we're going to get right into that, is after she died, they cut out her vaginal area because they felt like it was too big. Okay. And this is called Hottentot Venus. I decided to put this in here because this is something that's still going on to this day. The main thing is that they took, remember, they were living on a land that the Dutch owned. So they enslaved them they took the Khoisan women and they enslaved them. And so because you're my slave, I can do what I want to with your body. So they decided to take the women into London. Mainly it was about one woman, her name was Sargent Bartman. It's a movie online, Sargent Bartman is strong. And they basically made her into a circus attraction because of her well-endowed body. And she ended up, actually, they said was one of the first forms of chlamydia, because she ended up becoming a prostitute. She went from being a circus, because they kept her in a cage, and then they took out the cage and made her dance around, and it was a white woman that was like, oh my God, what is this? So women and men are getting aroused by what she's doing. It's no different than what we see on twerk videos and subjugation of our women to this day on any social media site. You don't think about it. You don't even have to go on a porn site. You can go on Instagram and see your woman being disrespected by white people. Because we can say, well, what about the black man doing it? I'm like, but that dichotomy is created by white supremacy. You understand what I'm saying? You can sit here and blame me for it, but we're both prisoners of war in our own country. So when you see prostitution, you see a situation where a whole hellacious and horrific system comes in where they're able to make you do something that you would not normally do. So it's like our sisters that's walking in the streets right now. Were they born to be prostitutes? So think about it. Is a black man born to be a pimp? So if he's not born to be a pimp, what dichotomy and system creates situations like that? You understand what I'm saying? So that's a problem. So these type of situations are still going on to this day. It's just that they decided to pick one of our women and make a movie about it and write stories about it. You understand? So in their feeble little calcified pioneer mind, when something is different, they either try to kill it or make fun of it. But in her case, they enslaved her and made her into an attraction until she died. And then they kept her body for science experiments, as you can see. This is still her body. They kept her body for all the way up until 2002, when those in South Africa had to go get her body. Just think about what type of group of people would keep the body of a woman, like strip her out, take the brain out, take everything out, and just like keep her as an exhibit. That was her actual body. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is who we're dealing with in America when we're dealing with whites in America and whites all over the world. This is a mindset that does things like this. Even in death, they kept her in a museum. That's like someone taking your mother or taking your sister, or taking your wife and putting her in somewhere. Oh my God, she's so all these big things on her. Matter of fact, because in the story they tried to do that to her when she was alive, and she wasn't having it. So they waited until she died and they took her body. And again, another misnomer is called Grimaldi. When you go online and you look up Grimaldi, Grimaldi is usually what you might get, because when I did my research, I just put Khoi, which is like, damn, you get nothing. Little to nothing. But when I put in Bushman and Grimaldi, then I got this man, Prince Albert Grimaldi. His family is still owning, they still own the bones of the ancient Khoi that was the first people in Europe. You understand? And the term Grimaldi, again, is a misnomer for that group that we call Khoisan to this day. The Bushman is also a misnomer because when the Europeans came in, they saw them in the bush of the forest hunting, and they said, well, these are Bushmen, obviously.
I have a question. Yeah. You said that those first people in France were Khoisan.
Mm-hmm.
So are the first people who leave today what we call Africa, those first people to leave Africa, were they Khoisan?
No, Khoisan. They left Africa about 46,000 years ago, they said, based on carbon dating, and they were the first, the women specifically. The men came after, but the hunter-gatherers and the planters were the ones that make Europe an actual fertile land. And once they were, again, because of colonialism, once they were pushed out and back into South Africa, the land became unfertile because Europeans, for the most part, are not very good farmers and keepers of land. But again, I want to make this very important to y'all. I'm going to keep reiterating this. The first people to inhabit Europe was African people, and that was the Khoisan group of South Africa. That's the main thing. Before there was any Neanderthal on the planet, it was us. And again, I just want to go into this. Again, at least 46,000. These are the bones that they found. And based on DNA evidence, they tied them right back into South Africa. So that, I'm not saying they're Moors, I'm not saying that. These are Khoisan, and Khoisan ain't wearing no fezzes. It's Khoisan, brown skin, Africans that inhabited an area that they made fertile. And they used what they call the Chauvet caves. They call them the Chauvet Ark to this day. There's a couple examples of this as we go further. I have like at least 3 examples, and that will be the end. But that shows that they didn't live in the caves. I want to also make this very clear. What you see in the caves is not an inhabitant, but they use the caves as a medium to show exactly what's going on. It's the same thing as in Kemet, as in Nubia, that you see, or even in, of course, in Mali, wherever we are, we left evidence of what we've done. And because of this, you're able to track exactly what we did. Europeans don't do that. Europeans either destroy it or they do grunt stuff. I don't know, Neanderthal stuff. You know. And yeah, this is what we call the Khoisan Cave Art, and it's called the Chauvet Cave Art to be specific. So I want y'all to look this up. This is documented. The Chauvet Cave Art. You can go online, and it's way more. It's so much different forms of art that when the Europeans came in and they saw this, they were like, oh my gosh. They, at first, the main thing what they tried to do, and I want to make this also clear, they tried to call the Khoisan, because they came out of the Organization period, basically a Homo erectus group. Because then if I just make them into a Homo erectus group, I don't have to make them into humans, I don't have to make them into Africans no more. I can discount them. You know what I'm saying? If you can just make them this, then I don't have to say, oh wow, well, these are, but then you can't, they could no longer do that because when they dated based on DNA evidence, they were able to date them to a point where these were Homo sapiens sapiens. These were Africans leaving marks of themselves and actually leaving marks of animals when they were in Europe to show exactly what they were doing in that area. This is very important. And again, I just want to, this is to give an idea of what was going on, because these here go back 30,000 years ago. BP means before Paleolithic. So that is a point in time where we're not even dealing with Neanderthals at that point. The last remnants of the Khoi in Europe made contact with the Neanderthals who came out of the Eurasian area of Europe. Because where they were, they dominated most of Europe. Where the Neanderthals were was in as they call upper parts of Europe. And they ended up, basically meeting up with each other. There was no mix, but it was, as they said, it was a possible cohabitation. But they were already there as a Khoi already dominating Europe. And again, just more, I just wanted you to see that these are highly advanced. This is 30,000 years ago. Just think about this. There's no crayons, there's no magic markers, there's no marker. This is stuff that they're doing with little to very few resources. And they try to make these people Homo erectus, into like Darwinism type creatures. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is it's very important to realize what these crackers have been doing to us as a people is that I can demote you status-wise, and the next thing I know, I can come in and basically wipe you out. It's all in the same step one to step whatever. But this is all very important. I just want people to see this. This right here is beautiful because it again shows that these were highly advanced people. That the fact that you're doing this with no real resources the way we have, it's stuff that we can't even do now with a bunch of stuff. But just think about what they were able to do with little to nothing. This is stuff that they were doing when they first got within a 15,000 year period. This is very important. Just think about, because when I first found this, it blew my mind, because I'm like, they did this in 30,000 years ago? That I can't even barely do stick figures. I'm barely doing hangman, and they're doing this with little to nothing. Just think about this. Just get that in your mind. It's very important to know. This is the end. I just wanted. This is again just to end. In closing, that there is no African outside of us that we don't have a real connection to, because we're all in the same family, because we're all going through the same problem with the same group of people. The main thing is that in anything that I do, you have to learn from what we've done and what we've dealt with as whites who are natural born enemies. And they remind you who they are to you based upon how they treat you and how they treat your family. Khoisan is your family. You can learn from them. You can learn from creating a language that's codification. Even if it to you, well, it's just a clicking sound, but it's better than what you're doing, which is nothing. Because you, as a race, or as a group in America of Africans, do not have a language on your own, and you need to create it, or you need to go to Africa and take something, even if it's the Metanetsa language, and you correlate it. Because, for years I did Nuapi, and I'm still speaking it, but it's my own. Because I can find those who speak Nuapic and I can cut y'all off. I don't want to do that, but that's a code. And they have a code within their language, but the thing is, the reality is that codification is being pushed out because of colonialism. And the main thing, again, I want people to understand is that you have to learn from the past, and you have to see what has done to them, what has been done to them, what we're doing to them right now, to realize that we're going through the same issues to this day in America. Thank you.
I'm gonna call you Baba. I'm not gonna age you, but let me just say this: for this presentation is $10 per person. So for those of you who didn't get a chance, please put $10 into the basket. And if you don't have $10, then we can just charge it for you. But I wanted to ask you to read the bibliography.
Got you. The first one is from Christ and Scully, and it's an article. It's called Sarah Bartman, Hottentot Venus. I I did it alphabetical order. And the next one is David Tadester, and it was 4 different ones. David Tadester, Chiribo Quindo, Robert Petty, Judy Tolber, and Daryl Rotten. This was back in 1997. There was an article called African Traditional Religion in South Africa and Noted Bibliography. And this is, excuse me, it was a book. It was 2 pages I used from that. I was able to find online. The next one, third one was Dorothea F. Bleak. It was called the Bushman Dictionary. This is, I was able to get a piece that was page 502. And the fourth one was Elkins, from Caroline Elkins. This is a website from the New York Times that she did on Sarah Bartman. The fifth one was from realhistory.com on the prehistoric art of the Grimaldi. And the sixth one is from Oswald Collier, and that was a website from Encyclopedia Britannica on the Khoi sign languages. And the seventh one is from Sadia Qureshi, and that was back in 2004. It was called Displaying Sarah Bartman, the Venus Hottentot History of Science. And this was back in 2004, and that was a piece about these 20 pages that they had of her. And one of our great historians, African historians, Robin Walker, a book called When We Rule. I recommend that to anybody. And that was a book he read back in 2006. I used 2 pages from his. And the last one was Lewis Williams, Reconstructing the Past, the Khoi Corps back in 2000. So I used 9 sources for this.
Okay, great. And so when you were explaining that like you were explaining the subtlety and the click sound, like ear and things like that, where did that come from?
That basically originated, the clicking sound.
No, I mean which source?
Oh, that was from, let me see. That was from the, let me go back down. I just had it. That was from the Encyclopedia Britannica of the Khoi sign languages. That was Osmond Collier. That was like a lot. It was a lot of information, but a lot of it, when you do research, I noticed you have to get the meat and get away from the speculation.
Right.
You know, that's how I learned from doing this. Because Europeans, a lot of times, when you get information from them, they tend to just speculate without actually going from the fact, or perhaps. Always look for when they say, well, perhaps. That's a speculation, you don't know for a fact. And then that perhaps becomes propaganda, as we have been seeing for years. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, they're brilliant. You never. But y'all sure?
You got a question?
Y'all leave me alone. Go ahead.
Were there any Khoi sign in like the Americas at any point?
No. No, the thing is that they stayed mostly within the continent. And they first stayed within, let's say, South Africa because their numbers were a lot larger. Let's say 100,000 years ago. When they encountered Neanderthals at that time, let's say in Europe, they had to fight, and a lot of those battles they were losing. So they were losing numbers. But their main thing was they stayed in Africa. There was no migration. The main migration that you're talking about is Ugandans that came into Americas, as they say, 100,000 years. But they stayed mainly in the continent. And they branched off, and that's why a lot of their numbers really was almost half of the continent. That's why when you listen to European scholars and they call them sub-Saharan Africans, they're mostly talking about the Congo and mostly talking about the Khoi sign, because they're trying to place a name on them that makes them non-valid. But no, they never came into the